Hello.
Hello, mate. Jolly good
How's
evening to you.
how's it going, Lee? Sorry about your wrist, and we
Yeah,
didn't
it's
get to
not
have
going.
a
It's not going
birthday
well.
party
It's
for you last night.
well, yeah. Like I said, I didn't even really celebrate my birthday. I was just hanging around, just having to sit around with my swollen wrist now my swollen feet. So
Uh,
brilliant.
Sorry to
It's
hear
not been a
that.
good. It's not been a good birthday, mate. If I'm honest.
Yeah, sorry
But
to hear that.
like I say,
Who
what
we
can I
got
do?
with
I'm
us here?
I'm using my
Henry
left hand
Nelson's
as
here.
well, guys,
Yeah.
to answer the messages and stuff. So it'll take me a while. Sorry, mate. Carry on.
Oh no.
Sorry.
Yeah, try some non-steroidal anti-inflammatories or something like that if you can
Yeah,
tolerate.
that's what I've been doing all that.
All right, good deal. Who we got here? Henry Nelson's here. John Keller, Connecticut's Most Wanted. D-Rock's in the house. The
Hi, D-Rock.
Charinator. How you doing, my Scottish brother? There's a lovely Nicole in the chat. I didn't know she was in there. I would have said hi to her first. Hello, sweetheart. I love you. 5 weeks, 5 days from today, if he goes to the full term, 40 weeks. I don't think. I think he'll be here in another 4 to 5 weeks. He's getting huge in there. He's running out of room, so won't be long. Scott L
Yeah,
is here.
it's good. Hi, guys. Anyway, hi, slow motion.
Slow
Hi,
motion's
Scott.
here.
Hi, Gerinator. Hi, D-Rock. Hi, Henry. I'm sure Henry's here. And John Culler's here, isn't he, as well?
The baby, every time he hears me talk, he jumps or kicks. So I'm hoping that's a good thing. I hope he's not. Who's that old man? It scares me. But I read him stories and talk to him and stuff. So
Yeah, that's it. You got it, haven't you?
and I can't wait till he gets here. He's gonna be streaming with me. Gonna, got a little thing
Lovely.
that
In
Scott's
YouTube, a
life
bit funny
games
with kids. In YouTube,
wearing.
a bit funny with kids, though.
Eh, I
With
don't know.
having kids on screen. I'm sure there's. I'm sure.
Yeah, I'll have to check into that. There are things
I mean,
about having
you got to let them
children.
know that it's got kids in it or whatever. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Now maybe he'll just do a cameo here and there.
Yeah, well, so let me apologise to anyone that tried to come to my birthday bash last night. I just wasn't up for it. I mean, I haven't really got to do anything now, so I don't, I didn't mind coming on, but I may not even do a show tomorrow night yet. It depends how I feel, because I can tell you, I feel like absolute crap. I don't feel good. Look, I'll show you. Look, I mean, just look at the thickness of my hand. Look, this one is a little bit thicker, isn't it? That's what happens. See, normally you can see my bones at the back of my hand, look. But no, I can't even twist it because it
You're
hurts
gonna
so
look
much.
like
And
Popeye there before you know it. Maybe you need to
plus,
switch and
plus
use
it's
the other hand
bruised.
now and again.
Oh, don't, mate. Just don't, mate. No. Right. Yeah, you're all right, mate. You can go take me off.
Didn't mean to take you completely off.
That's all right.
But anyway, we're
So,
back
hi,
with
RP Scazza.
hey RP, how you doing? Didn't see you sneak in there. Catheter's here. I guess she
Hi,
milked her
Cathedra, go
chickens and
slow.
walked her hair and stuff. But thanks for being here, Ghost Lore. I think that's it for now. We'll go ahead and get started here.
RP Scazza. It's a lifelong issue I've had with because I had two screws put into each. I had a screw put into each wrist, and it was an operation years and years and years ago. And just over the years, they've worked their way out the screws. And if I sleep on it wrong, it swells up like this. So it's just I've always suffered with it. That's what I'm saying. That's why sometimes I can't even play a note. You know, I've got to be
Looks
careful.
painful.
Well, it is, mate. It's like having toothache in your arm, in your hand.
Yeah, and
That's what it
that's when
is.
I get gout either in my ankle or in my toe. That's how I described it. It's like having a toothache in your joint down there.
Yeah, that's it.
It's unbearable. So I can't imagine.
Old slow
Never
motion.
had gout in my
Entertain
wrist,
me.
but
Are you not entertained?
and I just wanted to let you know all day today, your version of Easy Like Sunday Morning has been on a loop in my head. The
Sorry
part
about
we
that.
go, that part. Now that's probably
Yeah,
get us a
I could do with more voices on that bit. I do need
copyright.
to do a proper version of it, really, but because I don't really,
But
like I said,
that's been
I
stuck
don't
in my
spend as
head.
much time on cover versions anymore. I think that's what it is.
And it's all
So
good. Your stuff and the cover versions and everything. We love it all.
yeah, that's nice of you, mate. Cheers, buddy.
Go ahead and get
I'll be alright
ready.
once I can play again, but
Yeah.
obviously, it's even looking unlikely tomorrow because I've got to do so much mouth
Mm.
movement when I'm doing the records and
Yeah.
stuff. You know, it's not a case of this is different. I can come in, say hi as best as I can, you know, and
Well, could you set it up and just do a playlist like you used to do
just
when you weren't
well,
on
yeah,
camera?
I could do that, but still, I'm still gonna have to, put all the tracks in the thing and still have to interact and. So we'll see how it goes. I might do, yeah. It depends. The swelling might have gone down a little bit more
Yeah.
by
Don't
tomorrow.
push yourself.
But
Just see how you feel tomorrow.
yeah, that's it. Well, I'm not. I've been just, doing nothing. Literally, I haven't been able to do anything. Yeah. So anyway, we gonna do this.
Yeah, tonight we got something special for you that doesn't have Stanton Friedman in it for the
And
first
don't
time in
forget
a
about
while.
copyright.
Yeah, let me go ahead and do that. Thanks for reminding me. Just so you know, the following video falls under fair use. Copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for the purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Furthermore, beyond staff management leave, myself, no one involved here do not own this content. All credits go to its rightful owner. No copyright infringement intended. So put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Puff, puff, pass.
But it's called Alchemy and Aliens, and it was produced by some. It was like a community TV program somewhere out west. I think the call letters started with a K. Um, East of the Mississippi, the call letters start with a W, and the west of the Mississippi, they start with a K. So I think if it is a K, then it's from somewhere west of the Mississippi.
All
But
right.
anyway,
Okay.
we'll kick it off here, and here we go. Enjoy Alien Alchemy. Oh, got it. There we go.
You're on the other one, don't you? Right on the end.
That one. There
That
we go.
one. Yeah, there you go.
If it's produced by somebody named Sloopy, you know it's good.
Yeah.
Space Cities is a show about astronomy, space exploration, and scientific phenomena. Today's topic is alchemy and aliens. I'm your host, Michael Levy, and today's guest is Zareth Shahara.
Oh, Michael.
Good
Thank you for
afternoon.
having me.
Zareth, you've had a multitude of what would be considered paranormal experiences. You started off on the East Coast, being born in Philadelphia, and you have made your way out to the West Coast. Tell me about some of those experiences.
Well, I guess it started early on in life with being able to, you could say, make predictions about where my life was headed. And I told my mother at around 4 years of age that one day I was going to be working in Hollywood. I'd seen the sign on television and told her that. And about 24 years later, I was working on a film set. My mother came and visited, and she said, "Do you remember telling me when you were a child?" I said, "Yes, I do." And so here we are. But, for me, started out in an area of surrounding Philadelphia that are not, it's not conducive to spiritual and consciousness growth, if you will. So for me, I was experiencing these things that I kind of knew were out of the norm. I never heard other people talk about them. And so I just knew one day I'd be coming to California. I would watch television shows and go, that's California. It was as if I already knew the place before I got here. But how I was going to get here is where the real journey began. And so for me, it started out, we were living in Atlantic City, in that area, when I was 17. And I went into high-rise construction, and I was building a lot of the casinos. I worked on about 10 of them. And then I decided I was going to work inside of them. And so I became a casino dealer. And I got really good at it. So good at helping customers win that they let me go from 4 of them, which was just par for the course for me. I knew this wasn't going to be my career. But I had a friend who offered me a job on a commercial fishing vessel. And so I had a very mystical experience that made the decision for me. And I wound up out there. And for 4 years, I was on the East Coast fishing and had the opportunity to go all the way through Panama, all the way up to Alaska with one vessel. So I stayed on that boat, and we went to Alaska. And when I got there, I wasn't making the money that I was promised. So I automatically started looking for something else. But while I'm there, I realized, I was told early on that if you have a pulse, you have a job up here. So I flew out to Dutch Harbor, and I wound up becoming a king crabber. And, you know, when you're out there and you are in that profession, and they tell you it's the most dangerous job in the world, I just, basically you feel like you're beating the odds every time you come back to the dock. And you start to feel a little bigger, a little more invincible, a little more bulletproof, until about 4 years later. And so 4 years into it, I was in the Bering Sea in January, opilio fishing, when our vessel got hit with 3 rogue waves, one right after the other. And on the first one, I got washed over. And I was under the vessel. And how I'm still here today, even talking to you about this, was absolutely nothing short of miraculous. Everybody on the crew agreed. I had just beat the ultimate odds going into the Bering Sea in January at night. You don't come back. And so I did. They got me back on board, and I made a decision. Maybe dying wasn't a good way of making a living. So I wound up going down to Seattle and spent time with my girlfriend. We had 2 places at the time. You make a lot of money when you're doing it. And she got called on a film set to do hair and makeup. And so I went and visited, and I was blown away with how it all works behind the scenes, you know. And I said, this is what I want to do. And that had been maybe the story of my life constantly, was I would say, I'm going to do this, I would do it. So just through determination, you know, that dogged nature that I have in me, and you've known me for a couple of decades now, once I get on something, I don't get off it. And so I became a stagehand. And then I worked on location for a couple of years. And it wound up being over 10 years, about 25 feature films, television shows, commercials, and got to see how it all works. And so basically, though, as this was occurring, the drive for me to discover the truth about life and about all of this began when I was baptized in the Bering Sea, you would say at night, and brought back out and realized that I had not only beaten the odds, but it made me think about, I lost 40 friends in 4 years up there. And I lost about 40 on the East Coast too, but on a vessel that goes down on the East Coast in the fishery that I was in, 15 guys die at one time. In king crabbing, it's 4 to 5 guys per vessel. So more boats went down while I was up there than happened on the East Coast. And you come away from it thinking, why me? Why did I survive? I knew so many people who were way more dynamic than me in character, and I thought were just those atypical Alaska men who, you know, should have, by all accounts, survived anything. Being dropped off in the middle of nowhere. These guys were like that. They were, in my eyes, larger than life, just like Alaska itself. And so, you know, going from deckhand to stagehand, I had a lot of time to think while I was in that hotel room at nights. And I worked on a film called Fearless. And it was, the basic premise of the film was Jeff Bridges survives a plane crash while his best friend, who was way more dynamic, had the perfect life and everything seated right next to him, he dies in the crash. So the character of Jeff's goes crazy, insane, trying to figure out why it is in the larger picture of things that he survived. And I think in my case, what I came to was there's still something I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not sure what it is, but maybe it's better that I don't know. Maybe I would have said no to that agreement. But I think when we all incarnate, I've gotten to the point where I realize we all have dignity, we all have purpose. And distinctions are only things that keep you from thinking that you're more special than somebody else. So I never thought I was, but you know me, when it comes to having inner dialogue, I rarely keep it within. So that when I was discovering a lot of these things over the years, I remember you being there and I would bounce it off of you. And you were my sounding board, because a lot of what I was discovering had to do with history, religion, politics, and this was all from just asking, who am I, why am I here? And I kept getting led into these different areas for periods of time. So it was as if I was being guided, and I know I've been guided because over the years I've heard a voice occasionally tell me, move, and then something would hit the deck.
You've always been interested in linguistics.
Yeah.
And linguistics in many, many respects has brought you to understandings that you'll say are the results of alchemy, of a person being able to envision a future for themselves and forge that in a constructive manner. Could you expound upon that a little bit?
Sure. Well, first, let's just define alchemy. And it's succinctly, simply put as speeding up nature and changing one thing into something else. And if that something else wasn't already in that one thing, it wouldn't occur anyway. So in other words, I was going through transmutation myself. I was coming to discover who I really was. And it's really more of an uncovering of anything, because in my case, I had to stop defining myself as this body. I had to start thinking, who is the observer inside? Because alchemy, if it teaches you one thing, it teaches you the art of manifestation, how to put your intention into whatever experiment or project you're working on.
The filling of Socrates' cup, in other words.
Oh, yeah. And then I also had to play with Plato's cave. What's reality? You know, what is my reality? And so alchemy, if you read the stories of the alchemists, which is what I did before I ever got into the actual art or physical experimentation, I wanted to make sure I knew inherently this was a sacred science. And, you know, what is it about man? There's one fever we've never been able to cure, and it's gold fever. And so going back to the Bible, you have 417 mentions of gold in the King James Bible. And so what is it about gold? And that's what eventually led me from transmutation into the story of the Anunnaki, as they say, which is starting to really become part of the zeitgeist. People are asking a question, who are these guys? In other words, if the Sumerian culture, which was recording their events 3,000 years before we get the Hebrew version, and the stories are very similar, and what was the connection? So it had to be through linguistics. It had to be, where did the language begin for us? If they say that the first civilization popped up out of nowhere in the Fertile Crescent between the Tigris and Euphrates, then what language were they speaking? I wanted to know what they were really thinking. So basically, the recorded texts or the scrolls that they found, and there's hundreds of thousands of them, recording everything from, you know, their history, their mythology, and their daily routines in life. So they were real chroniclers, like we were as well. They were very plugged in, you know. And I think in some ways they knew a lot more than we did about what's going on around us now. First of all, they had no media. So how did they communicate? They communicated through these scrolls. And the scrolls, translated would be from 2-letter syllables to 3-letter syllables to a point where now we're describing words by adding an H in our transliteration, by adding an H. Like
What was the significance?
Abram. Well, Abram, for instance, was an ABR. He was a citizen of the Fertile Crescent, in what they called E.DIN in some texts, or the abode of the righteous ones. And that's the interpretation we got out of that, was that it's very similar to the Eden of the Bible, which came later. But the stories are very similar. There was a flood, there was a cataclysm. Some survived, some didn't. The name that we know of biblically as Noah was actually called Utnapishtim in the earliest text, and then became Ziusudra later on. And we see these clues in cultures all around the world that there was an event, there was a flood, there was something that occurred. And now that we have become like students of astrology, and again, because we have Hubble and other technologies that can send us out visually into space, but we also have other technologies which are telling us what else is out in the field. What we see in 3D is not always just what we're perceiving. And a lot of that's based on belief systems. So the language was the expression of the belief system. So when I got to Sanskrit and Aramaic, it just so happened that things unfolded in such a way that I would meet someone who was an expert in languages. And for me, it was a man named Father Charles Moore, who intrigued me in ways I can't describe, because at the time I was studying the Sumerian culture, the Anunnaki, the story of these gods who came to Earth and, according to their text, created mankind as servants. And they were also, the story said that they came to Earth looking for gold. And the reason being is they wanted to take this gold back to their home planet, Nibiru, and fix an alien atmosphere, so to speak. Now, all of these things I started to see metaphorically, like fix an atmosphere. Well, what is our mind but an atmosphere? The image of Atlas holding up the world on his shoulders and straining under the pressure of it is one that they taught in the mystery schools of Greece. Basically, there was a statue out front, and they were saying, that's you. You just don't know it yet. That you're carrying the whole world around on your shoulders, and you're a god, and you don't know it. And this seemed to be the theme. And then as Plato and Socrates, described in their own thoughts on these things, like the more I learn, the less I know. What does this mean, And now we're at an age where the language that we should all be speaking is one of frequency, feeling, sensation, and love. This is the strongest language there is, because there are no words to truly express it. As for instance, in Aramaic, why I say our ancestors may have known more about certain things than we do now, is because they were entrained in such a way that, well, if you said, I love my mother, you wouldn't say, I love my sandals the same way. So you would also say, I love my neighbor. And in the Bible, it tells us as your own soul. Well, in Aramaic, it says as your own nafsha, which means your very own essence. In other words, when I started understanding language, then all of a sudden quantum physics opened up for me. So Father Charlie had filled in a lot of blanks for me with a lot of the mysteries. And here was a man who worked at the Vatican, down in the catacombs, reading ancient texts. And from what he told me, he spoke over a dozen of these ancient languages. He could read them and interpret them as they were meant to be. And so he would see things that the rest of us never had privy to have access to. And he would just make like statements that just came out that would linger and stay with you for a long period of time. He really was a mystical soul. So he helped me out a lot with language and the understanding of things. By the way, the Aramaic people had about 10 words for love. We have one. So if love is a feeling and it affects the field around us, and we know that it does now from people like Masaru Emoto, Nassim Haramein, the Heart Math Institute, they're showing us that this is the most powerful language we can speak. So I had to learn, it's like how to tie your shoes to becoming a marathon runner. And metaphorically, and that's what I was doing. Was I was keeping all of my experience and what I learned in ancient language and in these books that Zecharia Sitchin wrote, where everybody mistakenly says Zecharia Sitchin interpreted these texts his own way. No, he didn't. He took the interpretations of the scholars who all got together and discovered them in the 1800s, and then he put a storyline to them. And the storyline does mirror the biblical tales in so many ways that you can maybe take it to the next step, which what I did was I went into the books that were banned, the Apocrypha, the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jasher. These are books that weigh more than 5 Bibles put together in some cases. And so a lot more was being revealed at another level. It was almost as if I was being shown exactly what I wanted to know, but incrementally. So it wasn't too much to handle, and I just turned away from it. And so...
Back to the white powder of gold.
Okay.
To the power of gold, that folks are so enamored with it. You're concerned with health. What experience do you draw from to...
Well, okay, so what is it about gold, right? So if you look at our blood under a microscope about 800 times, you're going to see little specks of gold moving through it. So it's literally in us. And so, like, as a for instance, how does gold equate to red? When you look at the stained glass windows of the old cathedrals of Europe, they were performing alchemy. They were using gold to make that color red. They would use copper to make green. So this was an ancient
So you're
craft.
saying that they're creating a matrix of light, basically.
Well, I
with
have
different elements
as a for
to
instance,
create
yes.
something beyond the normal 3 dimensions. You're actually talking about the 4th dimension.
A completely metaphysical science, but it is also part of our 3rd dimensional reality. Back to color for a moment. I have a friend who invented something, and this invention had to do with discovering the source of light. And he said he was using an electron microscope, and he went to look for the source of color in things. And he said, do you know what I found? I found there is no color in color. It's only the crystalline shape of the 3rd dimensional structure I'm looking at and how it reflects ambient light. And his invention has changed the world. So I finally spoke to somebody who had privy to an electron microscope. And I realized something. So when they say that we live in empty space, it took me about 10 years to really get a hold of the hologram, as we're all referring to it as these days. And it really is a holographic environment. I mean, we ultimately know that this table, these chairs are 99.9 more nines at least empty space. And therefore matter of all that is, like in our solar system alone, 99% of all the matter is in the sun. So that further expands the nature of this empty space for me. They said if you could take all the matter of the sun and put it in a teaspoon, it would have the same power and the same electromagnetic force and draw, but that's all the matter that is involved in this big gaseous ball. Then when I started seeing things like that the sun was cooling down according to the observations, and yet the planets on the way out were heating up according to those other observations. Does the sun provide what each of these sentient beings, these planets, as an alchemist we refer to them, these influences. Other people refer to them as gods. In other words, the gods were getting involved in your life. In other words, we're talking about astrology and how it does affect us. And there's a great book called Planets and Possibilities, where she talks about how these have these influences on us and how frequencies are, our frequencies are tied to these other living orbs out here. For instance, if I remember correctly, because it's been about 20 years, or somewhere around there, that if they took a person and we all have an expression, we all have an atomic frequency that's individual. In fact, everything is.
Absolutely.
Why? Because where it was, even these 2 cups, which are identical to us, are not according to atomic frequency. They each have their own frequency. And a lot of it has to do with where the stars were at any given moment.
Yes.
As these things were being cast and brought into existence.
Yeah.
Now
The
everything
same thing
begins-
as we see a solid object now, and we
began in
get
the
a
mind.
representation of
It
something
began in the
happened
mind.
hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, millions of years ago out in space.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking to me once about some research that was being done that basically they were
Okay.
looking for some things.
Yes. Okay. Now, nowadays we have Nassim Haramein, who is he was driven by the image, if I remember correctly, of in the textbooks in school. It tells you this is the universe. So it's basically a guy blowing up a balloon with pennies on it, and it's expanding. What he said was his drive to understand things was, who's the guy blowing up the balloon? Who's behind this? And quantum physics tells us that it's us. And he has discovered recently in the last few years something that's being accepted by his peers, which is we are the Schumann resonance. We as a collective, a soul pod, if you will, are cells of Mother Earth, a living being. And we also, like the cells in our body, an alchemist would say as above, so below. The macrocosm is the microcosm, and each are expressed equally. And they're not independent of one another.
If someone is looking for a pattern in the stars through a telescope of any particular shape, ostensibly what you're saying is that it will be found.
And that's what happened with NASA back in the 60s. From any of the research that I could come across about, like some of these secret experiments they did, like with crystals and electricity and H3O or heavy water. That was an interesting one. The one where they were, I think it was around 1961, and they were doing mathematical projections of what they would find in space. The longer they looked and the farther and the deeper they went. And so I think that's how they first discovered a quasar, was they did the math first and said, this is what we should see next. And around 6 months later, they discovered a quasar. And so, encouraged, they ran some more experiments and deciphered that they should be seeing blue lines maybe next. And 6 months later, looking out, they found blue lines. Now, they could have said pink polka dots next or green lizards. It didn't matter, because 6 months later, whatever they thought they were going to find, they found.
It would manifest
And they
itself.
stopped doing these. And they stopped doing these experiments because maybe these noble minds were starting to think, hey, we're creating something here. This could be us and our observation. Now, quantum physics tells us that the observer affects the observed. In fact, not only that, that we are bringing matter into existence. Remember, there's hardly any matter at all, so it's inconsequential. It really doesn't matter. But our focus hardens this. I've seen the footage of an electron microscope watching an observer's thoughts and how these, you'll never see them, but you see the trails they leave behind. And by the trails they leave behind, you can almost tell what the person is thinking at any given moment. So imagine focused intent on bringing something into manifestation. I've been doing it for years and realized I have been. I started out with parking spots. Now, you can call this positive thinking, but if we live in a holographic realm, the difference between a dream, which is 100% empty space, and this holographic realm we exist in, that we call life, is that minute amount of matter. So this all as well can become a lucid dream. The first time you're in a lucid dream, you realize that you're making the things happen within it. Now, if you're not aware, then you're not lucid. And so the dream, it doesn't change. When you have a regular dream and the emotions are up and you're running from somebody who's trying to kill you, and you run across the street, you almost get hit by a bus, and then it triggers you and you wake up and you got to go to work. You created every bit of that dream, all of it, except you weren't aware that you were doing it. Now, in a lucid dream, which is also another experience I've had, you start to realize, I can make things happen here. Well, carry that same principle over into life itself, which is almost 100% empty space. Now, alchemy started to make more sense to me. So what is it exactly? For me, it was not so much about turning lead into gold. Everybody would love to do that. But is that the right thing to do if you are somehow made privy to this noble, ancient, most ancient art? Because this comes from Hermes texts. And I started to see things where Hermes reminded me a lot of Enoch in the Bible. And Enoch, according to the Bible, became Metatron. So a man went through that state of awareness, became a god, and is an angel. Now, then the word angel in Hebrew and in Greek means messenger. So, and it's funny how languages, I started to notice similarities to languages around the world when you brought that up, was like the word ha. In Hebrew, ha is sacred spirit. Okay, it's l'chaim. It's to life itself, and that is what life is. It's the spirit in all of us.
So what you're saying basically then is, if someone is bringing a message from outside your realm, they are an alien.
Well, as well, you can define it as such. Now, someone once said, you're in this place, but not of it, or not from it. So in other words, we're almost like Neo, which is Latin, by the way, for new, entering into the matrix by agreement. Red pill, blue pill. Okay, by agreement, it's choice. And Morpheus was the god of dreams. So he's showing him, basically, you're creating this. And then there are glitches in the matrix as well. So when we talk about matrix, it's a Latin word that means womb. And even the Catholic Church in its most ancient interpretations of what it was that they were providing was a womb. We are the womb, you know, the mother church. And so, you know, that's all based on, you know, the history that we know of. There's a lot of history that we don't know about. And language opened me up to a lot of that. So when I studied Aramaic, I wanted to know what, if this being, this supernatural being, and I remember in one text, it was the Gospel of Peter in the Gnostic text. It described Peter was just as skeptical as they say Thomas was, maybe even more so. Followed him everywhere. Always looking for, maybe this guy was, you know, not what they claimed. But he did notice two things, according to that book, was one is he never left a footprint anywhere he went, and he never blinked. So are we talking about supernatural beings amongst us? Now, if you're looking at this realm from an alchemical point of view, from an alchemist point of view, which is where you bring something from another dimension in this dimension by focused intent, this supernatural being was the one who, by the way, told us that we're in it but not of it, that, you know, whatever you believe so in your heart, it's yours already. But do you believe it long enough? Do you focus on it enough? So for me, when I came to discover the art of manifestation and the art of transmutation, and it was all through language. Everything I've ever learned was self-taught with a little help along the way. And I had to make up my own mind about it, but I always was aware that this is not for everyone. But the knowledge that's coming in now, and how alchemy is becoming part of the consciousness yet again, because it was, according to the Sumerian texts, the main problem that they had with these beings they created. That these Anunnaki gods, as they wanted to be referred to, and if you look at their little pictograms, you can see the god was seated on a throne off of the ground, separated from the ground, so he wasn't grounded in our frequency. He wasn't of 3D nature. You know, see our feet as plugging into the matrix. And here we are in life having this experience. When they were seated, men would walk up to them and give them gifts and offerings. So that means if he stood up, he would be that tall. Now, we know that according to our chromosome structures, 44 and 2, 46 and 2, the more that we get chromosomes added, the taller the being becomes. I remember Father Charlie told me the original Adam, the first Adman Kadmon, he was over 40 feet tall. And when he put that out there, he just said it. But over years of study and understanding things, that this pure being who was created through alchemical means. And that's what you start to see in the text when it says, well, God blew spirit into soil and created Adam. But wait, it said the Elohim said, let's make man in our image. The word make refers to alchemical methodologies. You remember the story of Rabbi Lo and the golem?
Yes, exactly.
A lot of people say that's very true.
mind.
A lot of people say it was very true that he said through Kabbalah, he understood how to create man. He understood God's science now. And he created a golem. And that golem got about 8 feet tall before the local people went to Rabbi Lo and said, look, it's getting out of hand with him. You either do something about it or we're gonna. Now you can imagine the story of Frankenstein because that's where it came from. Mary Shelley was over there and, you know.
You have particular feelings about growing things, nurseries and gardens.
Oh, well, yeah. Oh, most definitely. I mean, one of the things, you know, in this paradigm that we're in right now where things are like speeding up, as we had said earlier, we're starting to learn a lot of things about just how expanded we are. You know, we communicate with each other through words, but we're also communicating through those frequencies remotely. These experiments have all been done. And so we know that we can psychically communicate with one another over great distances. These experiments were going on late 1800s, early 1900s, and they were proven basically infallible. If the communication didn't work that day exactly the way it was supposed to, there was always some reason. There was something going on. But, you know, Stanford Research Institute, they've done their share of experimentation down here into our psychic nature, if you will, for lack of a better word. Intuitive self. That's what I like to think. I like to think that we're many different aspects.
What interests me specifically, there's
The
been
healer is a gardener.
Yes, exactly.
Old gardeners never die. They just spade away.
There's been a lot of research as of late in communication
With other
within
forms of
forests.
sentience. Yes.
Within forests,
amongst
tree
themselves.
to tree,
Yes.
about the conditions that
Yes.
are going on within
Who's
the
entering the
forest.
forest? What history he has? How they know the nature of this individual? Alchemy teaches you your oneness and your unity with all things. And I'm not talking the metaphysical, metaphorical alchemy. I'm talking about the transmutation of gold and other noble metals once ingested.
Yeah, let's
Now-
get back to that.
Yeah. And so when you start ingesting this white powder made from gold, which is why I originally went to see Father Charles Moore back in the year 2000, was because this was a Catholic priest talking about the Anunnaki and the white powder made from gold. I heard it in my driveway, and the next morning I was at that conference in Berkeley, and I met him, and we became friends. And, you know, although at a distance, we spoke on the phone a lot, we had a lot of good conversations, and he revealed things to me that, just like you said, were off the wall. And I'm not even going to talk about him a whole lot, but, you know, Adam being 40 feet tall, the fact that we, you know, I was probably like everybody else into distinctions at the time. And I've come to find that they're useless anxiety. Basically, you know, or it's my personal thing that I put out there all the time when people say this race or that race. I go, there's only one race, the human race. Okay? Forget all that antiquated noise. What we need to start seeing is each other as one another. Now, if our ancestors knew this, it would explain why the Mayan people used to greet each other, Ina Ish, which means you are another me. How could you ever have an argument with someone after that? You know, and they were a very, very spiritual community, you know, and like the Essenes, and like the Gnostics, and I would say to a certain degree, like the Great White Brotherhood of Egypt, who were also a pharaonic bloodline. When I came to see the story of Moses as something alchemical, it was also historical, because I looked at Moses, and the name Moses actually is shared in Egyptian as well, like manna. Manna in both languages means what is it? Now manna was what was kept in the Ark of the Covenant. And the word covenant means to break bread. Okay? And so what bread are we talking about here? Well, it was the bread of life. There was the manna that when Moses went up on the mountain with Bezaleel, the goldsmith from Egypt, manna came down And what they used to do is they would put sheets out and stake them in the ground and collect this dew in the morning, then wring them out and then drink it. And they said this was the food that God provided for them. Little did they know what was really going up on that mountain, and they have found forges on all those mountains now with bellows. And what happens is when the winds come up at nighttime, 80, 90 miles an hour, these bellows increase the temperature within the forge. And so imagine 200,000 to 600,000 people going into the desert, because that is the story of Akhenaten, by the way. That Akhenaten was exiled. So Moses went on Exodus, which means in the name of. And Akhenaten went on Exodus because the priesthood of Amen-Re at the time said, take you and your ideas and go away. And take all your people with you. This may have been his plan all along. Because when you take that many people from the collective into Nowheresville, they had no food. But their list that they brought is mentioned. Copper, nickel, silver, gold, and brass. These are all heavy metals. Now, if you had no food and you weren't bringing vast storages of water, why would you go way out into the desert, roam around for 40 years in about a 1.5 mile radius? Because there are forges up there. So the story of Akhenaten is he takes his goldsmith up to the top of the mountain. Now, Akhenaten was also called Moses for 2 reasons. One is he descended from the Tutmosis bloodline, which means fashioned from Thoth. Who was Thoth? He was the god of alchemy. So, and as well, we're talking 46 and 2 chromosomes. When you see all these three-dimensional images of Akhenaten, he was always taller than everyone else. They tried to say he had this disease or that disease. Whatever. This is a man who brought all these people out into the desert and said, I will take care of you.
It's interesting.
They say,
I seem to remember a reference
what are we
as a
going to eat?
forge that he ran.
Wait.
With
One
the
even
hammer.
better. One even better. So they go up to the mountain, let's just say. And I'll just give you the metaphors and take it for what it's worth. But let's say I'm a goldsmith and I'm from Egypt. And we have this practice where we actually take gold, heat it to a super high temperature, and then after it goes from the gold to a pure, clear liquid, it starts to cool. So you pour it in a bas-relief omphalos-shaped tablet, maybe even 2, with a couple of suggestions carved into them. Now, you bring these 2 tablets down with you, and now Hermes Emerald tablets were said to glow a mysterious supernatural green. The thing about orbitally rearranged monatomic elements, as they've been called, is that they actually were discovered by miners as the tailings left behind in a gold mine. And they call it ghost gold because it glowed back in the depths of the darkness. So you have these 2 tablets, and what do you do with tablets? You eat them. So it comes down and says, he waxed in anger that they were worshiping the golden calf. Now this golden calf was called El. Now El could be seen as a generic name for God, but in Egyptian culture, it was specifically Saturn. Now, Saturn was the horned one, okay? And so he was the bull. He was also represented as the bull. You go back to Sumerian culture and you can see a couple more representations. A 5-pointed star, the color blue, because Enlil means Lord of the airspace. Now that you could say that's the sky and it's blue. An alchemist starts to see it as Lord of the airspace. What's going on in your mind? This particular aspect or deity within your own self is influencing you. So, sometimes you have to ground me and bring me back. But as far as alchemy goes, it was the ancient science that everybody was pursuing. When you look at the story of Jason and the Golden Fleece and the Argonauts, he was looking for that golden fleece. The fleece was considered to be a coat of invisibility. Okay, this is another thing that alchemists can do, is they can change their vibration, according to some of them over the years, and disappear. So if you speed up your atoms, some masters from the Far East would say the same thing. I remember one story where a guy went over to meet a master in Tibet, and they were walking down this dirt road, and the rain started coming down, and he was soaking wet. But the master, who was wearing his little thing around his waist, was dry as a turkey bone. And before he got to ask him the question, he gave me the answer. And he said, oh, I just sped up my atoms so the rain goes through me. Now, there are many other stories that were collected by Baird T. Spalding and other people who, just like we say, in the last couple hundred years, things are speeding up. And so our ancient sciences and our ancient understanding of who we are as a collective must be very important, that it's coming back from the unified field to us. Yet again, because we're seeing, let's just say, from third dimensional astronomical observations, that we are going through this thing called the precessionate equinoxes, this alleged 26,000 year journey, which takes us through all 12 houses. And we have different expressions on one side of this journey and different expressions on the other. They say that the age prior to this one, the 12 to 13,000 years, it was very matriarchal. We were very in tune with nature. Then when we got past that 1,000-year lull, they call it, where it's 1,000 years of peace. I'm sure we've heard that before. And then we get back into what's the masculine-dominated age. And that's where we're at now, they say, at the very end of that. And when you get into that elliptical curve, things speed up. So now we are in an alchemical time, because remember, alchemy is just
The
speeding
slingshot
up.
effect.
Exactly.
Exactly.
But the thing is what's not as important as where we are now is our trajectory. And so consciousness is awareness. And people are becoming way more consciously aware of what's being sold to them or being told to them or going on in the world right now. So when a person sees or senses incongruent messages, it hits them a certain way now. Whereas before they were lulled by technology into just believing everything they heard in the system. You know, the word system in Latin means sewer. So, you know, if you're in the system, you know, the idea is we're in an area now, right, where I am now on the world, where California starts just about everything. I mean, we've had discoveries all over the world, but over the last 100 years, this place has had such a dynamic effect on the rest of the world. It's almost as if our activity here is causing reactions around the world.
No,
It's like
absolutely.
a ripple in
We
a
know of the
pond.
research that's being done with earthquakes, that it was a result of our geographic area. This is for sure.
Oh, I could see the epicenter of the last one. I could
space
see from
technology here.
where I'm
We
at.
are in the Mountain View area, and this is where so many great advances have been made.
So many minds. All the best minds are selected and brought to here. So I feed off of that energy too. We are one. And so that whole thing about the unified field of providing, because it's consciously aware of itself. We know the universe knows itself. And we also know that it knows its many other selves as well. So there's these things we call theories, you know, it has the word theo in it. So we believe we understand God's creation when we come up with these theories. But the theories lately have only been based on observations that can't be denied.
Well, then this leads to the next question, which is, are there uses for gold that remain undiscovered?
Yes, yes. And I would say undiscovered to the collective, but maybe not so much so to those who are in the business of discovering things like this. It's like, for instance, when I came across David Hudson. David Radius Hudson was the man who I would say rediscovered the art of transmutation and turned it on the world. He realizes, when I spoke to him, I told him, I said, I want to write a book about your experience, your discovery here. He said, and if that's the case, then let me tell you some things about it. And he did. And I haven't shared them with the world. I've shared them with friends. And I said to him, when he told me that, the first thing I said, I know that already. So I knew inherently this was part of my journey in life. And that was over 12 years ago. So, but I decided that, you know, that I'm going to devote myself to this for divine purposes, not even for my own self, but so that others can become aware of it, and then that would intrigue them. And so I'm in a place of discovery. Okay, and by becoming part of this television program here locally, I knew that I would at least get some audience to go look up orbitally rearranged monatomic elements, or ORMs. Now, David, when he went to apply for those patents on the ORMs, on the discovery, because he was told, if you don't apply for patents on these platinum group elements that you say you're discovering, then someone else will put a patent on them and shut down your research. He also knew that he was onto something sacred, something spiritual in nature. And he started the Science of Spirit Foundation. And he ran into a lot of things, a lot of roadblocks and things along the way. So he did his part. He put it out there and he set back. But what he was looking into was the healing aspects of it. Because if you look at the stories of the alchemists, and he's read hundreds of books like I have on the alchemists, you start to see that the true ones were really just wanting to be healers. That's all they wanted to do. Like Nostradamus. He was into alchemy and studying it during a time of the bubonic plague. And so he lost his whole family.
It really sounds like this is not a new methodology. This has always been a part of research.
Always been a part of our story.
Yes.
Now, if you think about the Anunnaki, this is where the alien and the alchemy comes in together. I don't refer to anything as alien anymore. If we're in a unified field and I'm the observer within this body having a third dimensional experience, and I agree to be here, then the infinite field means that there is no separation, there's no distinction.
Exactly.
And all
So
the
expectation is manifests itself in something concrete afterwards.
And I'm starting to notice mine are manifesting quicker.
Gotcha.
So any desire, now look at the word, desire, comes from two words, deity, sires. So the God within sires or gives birth to your desires. The word heart and the word earth are one and one. So if you go through your heart chakra, you can begin to speak to her. And that's what I decided I was going to do. I was watching the world come apart at the seams from so many different places at the same time, I'd say 5-6 years ago, that I offered myself in service to Mother Earth. If there's a spirit here called Gaia or Maya, which is also illusion, then I'm here to do whatever you need. And the first thing that came to me, it was a dedication in that book that I wrote, which is, we don't inherit the world from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. I've had a phenomenal life, you know it. And without going into all of it, I'm on borrowed time. When I got dunked in and pulled out of the Bering Sea by practically the hand of God, I knew that I was here to serve, but I didn't know where or how or who or when. And so now I realize it. And to realize something means to make it real. And so that's what I'm doing is, I realize I'm one of the tiny cells of Mother Earth, just like there are tiny cells within me. People could call them aliens coming to this body or this earth, but we have toxins within us because they seem to be toxic in many ways. They, according to the abduction experiencer, a lot of terrible things are occurring. I've been through the abduction experience. I had exactly 9 hours of missing time. This was witnessed, basically. Not the actual abduction experience itself, but the fact that I had 9 hours missing. And I can just say this, I was driving through Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, which is a very, let's just say, haunted place. There's a lot of energy there, may even be a portal or a gateway because of so much of this. And we now know about the science of ley lines and where they intersect and whatnot. And our ancestors knew all about it. That's why all their sacred grounds were always where dowsers can find these lines crossing. And so for me, hours later, I imagine, car and all, was in South Jersey with the radio all the way up, the heater all the way up, my phone ringing, the car on empty, and I wake up and I said, hello? And it was my girlfriend at the time, and she said, where are you? You said you were going to be here 9 hours ago. I go, I'll be right there. And it took years to find out that the average good abduction experience is about 9 hours of missing time. Took me and my car and deposited an hour and a half away drive time. I don't remember how I got there. Now, I've been to hypnotists. I became certified as a hypnotist. I've never gone down that road to see if I can extract that memory. So I never did. It really wasn't necessary. what was necessary to know was that I had an implant. And so I was at a UFO conference back in 2000, and Dr. Roger Lear was there, and we met. And I said, I think I've been implanted. I said, would you like to take a look at it for me? And he looked at it on a cursory examination. He felt it, looked at it. He said, looks like one. He goes, would you like me to remove that? Or try to, because he had problems removing Whitley Strieber's. And I said, you know, I've given that some thought, because if whoever they are have the ability to do what they did to me, and they find me that interesting, where are they going to stick it the next time?
Zareth,
So
our
he laughed,
time is
and I
about
laughed.
up. It's about up. And I think in conclusion, I've got to say this has been a very, very interesting hour that we've spent.
It's been an hour. Time flies.
Yeah,
doesn't
time
it?
flies.
It's an illusion, that's why.
Well, thank you so much for coming
for
to the
having me,
show.
Michael.
It's been
Funny,
really
I know a bloke
enlightening.
who sung a
I
song that
appreciate
Time's
it.
an illusion.
The
Wonder if-
blend
entertained
and meld
at the very least.
of scientific information that we have that
I'm only
really is
scratching.
irrefutable in so many respects, because of the fact that it is research that has been
Concluded.
done, yes,
Yeah.
more than once, and there's always been a positive response to this type of research in that respect.
So if anybody wants to contact me, you're going to
Oh,
have
absolutely.
that information. And if they have any questions and I can answer them, get in touch with me through the email,
Yes.
and we can establish some sort of,
Which
relationship along
is
those lines.
esoteria@sbcglobal.net. That's ESOTERIA@sbcglobal.net. And if you like more shows like this one, you can contact Space Cities at P.O. Box 487, Mountain View, California, 94042. Thank you so much, Joe. I really, really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
It's been a wonderful hour.
Thanks for having me.
Thank
Michael.
you.
Thank you.
Wow. Well. You're muted, mate.
There we go. I'll hit the right button eventually. Well, what do you think, Lee? He's had some very unusual, very thought-provoking ideas there, but who's to say?
Yeah, but it's like I said, to me, he did go a little bit on a tangent, but
Yeah, not quite what I was expecting, but
no.
a little bit interesting.
But
Nonetheless.
I think we all know that there's, we got metals in our blood and stuff. I mean, that's
Yeah,
we've known that
and
from
so you're talking
forever.
about the manifesting and doing things like
Yeah,
that.
but I
lot of
sort of got
Eastern
with him on the
religion in there,
the
too.
quantum physical thing. I kind of got him on that.
Yeah.
I kind of agreed on a little bit on that. But it's just hypothesis. To me,
Yeah,
it's just
it's
another
all-
person with hypotheses. You don't actually know. You can talk in confidence as much as you like, but you don't actually know.
Yep.
But
But he sounded well read, and he did a pretty good job talking about whatever he was talking about. I think
Yeah,
it makes
yeah.
sense to him,
Yeah.
but
yeah. But like I said, that I think a lot of people do these things because they want their 15 minutes of fame, mate. I really do. And
yeah,
it's hard to take anybody serious a lot of the time, because you have to be, you have to think to yourself, well, how many books are they going to sell? What is their actual, what is their actual thing they're up to, And he's one of these as well. He did everything. He had an implant. He's met this and he's met that, and I was starting to get a bit sketchy with him, That's just me.
yeah.
Just my
Mountain View,
opinion.
California. So that explains a lot. No offense.
Yeah,
to
when he said, all
California.
these new things come out of California, some really pathetic things because has also come out of bloody
And
California.
community television on top of that. KMVT, Channel 15, Mountain View, California, their public access TV channel there. So
Yeah, there you go.
anybody can get on public access. I had a show on public access years and years ago.
And anybody can say those sort of things, saying, we're all one, we're all, we all know this stuff, and it's easy if you just focus on one thing to talk about, and it happens to be that. I think you can do quite a good job of it if you do it enough, You keep telling people how you've even met the Anunnaki, but it's in a metaphysical way when you're laid in bed, and just going into yourself, into your chakras. When you start doing it like that, it just sounds so ridiculous.
Yep.
Yeah, but each to their own. I believe that there's a definite manifestation of things that are created around us. I don't know how that works, but quantum physically, it's kind of been proven.
He claimed that the stuff in the future is ourselves from the past putting it there. So that's kind of an odd approach.
There's another mind bender for you. Yeah, exactly.
But with quantum physics, that's kind of it's understandable if you approach it from that angle.
That's it. I think the problem is, like I said, there's so many of these people that are thrown into the mix purposefully as well to subvert and to, get your mind thinking on something else, because they don't want. See, like I said, if there's nothing really there, why would they make it so difficult to talk about it? Why would they question people? It's that old chestnut. But then
it's
you've
just
also
ignoring
got
it and letting it go away instead of calling attention to it, because there are people,
well, that's it.
myself included, that if they tell you not to watch this, or especially don't read this book,
Same here.
I want to read it. That's
Yep.
as soon as I was old enough to read,
Yep.
I went to the banned book list, and that's the books that I knew I needed to read to see what they were trying to hide.
also think, but like I say, I think there's a problem with they also put operatives in to, make people that believe what their story is as complete lunatics as well, because we know they're paid actors eventually, sort of thing, but that doesn't stop the fact that hundreds of thousands of people will still follow them and even give them $333.33 a year. That's true. That's how much they was charging, wasn't it, on David Wilcox?
Yeah, you reference that one quite often, but yeah, that was the guy that had the path to total enlightenment, and that's what it was going to cost.
Oh yeah, mate. Yeah, if you joined this thing for just £333.33 a year, or whatever dollars a year, then they're going to show you how they're going to build a spaceship, and you're going to be the first to be on it, and all the rest of it. It's like, yeah, okay, mate. What a good scam. But then you have to think to yourself, who are these people paying the money? Making this man get rich and end up in a mansion and all sorts. It's just like so undeserved. You know what I mean?
Lee, I think we're in the wrong business. Maybe we need to start a saucer cult and start charging people money so they get a seat on the mothership when the shit
so they
hits
can
the
get
fan.
some special information that we can only get from our special secret insider who can't be named because of legal reasons.
Yeah,
and
because
obviously
non-disclosure.
Obviously, he's also he could lose his position and stuff. So obviously we'd have to keep that under wraps. What's that? Yeah, but they don't. Yeah, but they don't know that about you. They don't know that. See how easy it is.
Yeah. Your anonymous source from off
My
camera.
anonymous source could be just off to the side here, and it could be just me looking at my bloody wife or just the wall. So yeah, we've got to be careful. I've
senior
like,
Wences with the
I
talking hand.
Clickbait videos quite easily saying, "Wow, what did he just say?" And a big face on the screen, because this is how people do it. Absolutely pathetic, if you ask me. Just, mate, I don't never click on any picture now, any thing that's got a person going, "What just happened?" or "What's said?" Because like that's like a CNN sort of friggin' point in the way to it. It's not them, but it's that language. Clickbait crap. Just say what you say.
I've noticed a trend
Why lie?
on YouTube videos. In fact, YouTube Creator Academy recommends that you do this. a lot of videos, no matter what it is, it'll have a red circle around something and an arrow pointing to it, and it doesn't have to necessarily have anything to do with the video.
I know.
I don't understand that. It's some kind of neuro-linguistic programming visually.
Because that's what it is. That's what it is. They've been drip feeding people these messaging types and styles and ways of doing things for so long. People would, but so if you only have to know marketing to know that's how you do it. I mean, you know, you could get clickbait all the time. You just don't put anything about your actual thing you're actually doing. Make it a thing that you never even end up talking about anyway. You know, it's like the thing that they say they're going to. It's not even in the video. It's just clickbait, literally, to make people click on the video, and then of course they listen to the whole bloody thing because they're waiting to hear about the thing that they thought they was going to get.
Yeah.
Just ludicrous. But yeah,
well,
I think
what you gonna do?
I think blokes like him are like self-appointed guru types, you know.
Yeah.
And
I'll have to look, but he's probably written a book or three for $29.95.
I'm telling you,
exactly.
100%. He's and what he wasn't very eye contact, was he? You know.
No, that could have been something else. I mean, there are people that have problems.
I mean,
I used to be that way because I was shy and because
but
I
he's
was
not shy by any
Asperger's.
means, is he? He's
not at all. He's out there
promoting oneness, and I'm all glee with the world. You see this, and it's a dichotomy that is, because it's like really that guy wouldn't have had a hat on, or if he did, it would have been back on the top of his head. He'd have had maybe shades on, a bit more lively or whatever. Or he'd have his eyes wide and like in bizarro
he's trying to be a little mysterious there,
a little bit aloof, and I see that as an act. You see, I see straight through that, and that's why I'm always such a skeptic. You know, I wear my shades because I'm just really cool, right? And it's a joke, it's just a little joke. No, but I'll wear mine because I don't like the bright screens. I should get some proper actual screen glasses, really. You know, but people like StreamYard just won't do us a dark mode. I don't know why. They won't do it. So you got a bright white bloody screen coming at you all the time, ain't you, Steve?
Yeah, I hate that. Now I can go full screen, and it cuts down on the glare, but then I can't see the chat. So
yeah, there you
what
go.
good is that?
Exactly, it's a pointless thing. You always have to have the chat up because that's how you get it on the screen. I don't know. So what are we doing then? We going, are we? Is that it?
Yeah, I guess that'll wrap it up for tonight. But thanks everybody for joining us, Lee. I hope you get to feeling better. But if you need to rest for another night, don't push yourself. We want you back in full force. We don't want a half measure. We don't want a half pint, right?
No, we don't. We need a full pint, mate, of Lee G, mate. Full pint.
Yeah. But thanks everybody for being here. From Beyond, on behalf of Lee G and myself, we'll see you a little further out in space. So take care. Tell your animals we said hi. Good night, everybody.
Bye from Beyond.
Tomorrow night on his channel, if he feels up to it. We'll wait and see.
If I feel like doing it, mate, it'll be
videos coming out all the time too.
That'll obviously be Radio 1FA back-to-back original tracks. It's a full pint, mate. Not off.
Indeed. And if you haven't checked out my radio show, please do. It's on the Clyde Lewis Ground Zero Radio Network. New episodes every Sunday night, 9 to 11. And I put a link for you in the chat there. All right. That looks painful, Lee.
Yes, mate. Like I said, I can hardly even move my fingers. This one, she's all right. But this one, no.
Yeah, that was kind of iffy still.
You can see, like I said, look at my knuckles.
Mm-hmm.
Right, just below the knuckles on this one. See how it's all dark? It's like bruised as well. That's what it does all the time. Like I said, there's nothing I can do about it. It's people always say, you need to do this, you need to do that, and there's not. I've been to surgeons and all sorts, and there's just nothing they can do. It's just something I'm gonna have to live with.
Bless your heart.
That's why I have to take it steady with the piano playing, even, because that's why if I start aching, I'm like, oh, I need to stop.
Yeah, and then that's your melody hand too. You could,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I
if
can
it
play.
been your bass hand, you could do the bass notes with one finger. Doom, 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 doom.
Yeah.
But make it a little difficult to play it that way, unless you do one of those fancy guys that can switch hands and play the other way.
Yeah, but I no. But
Just a
no.
suggestion.
Yeah, I just couldn't even have any. I can't even use my hand for anything weighted anyway. Like, you know, I can't even hit a note because the pressure on my hand would just. Ooh,
Oh, painful.
yeah, I can't even move my fingers. If I even touch my hand wrong, it hurts. So it's a bit of a
Definitely
pain.
get some rest, buddy. Stay hydrated, and if your
Yeah,
ankles
man.
are swelling,
Yeah.
elevate those puppies.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Yeah, I've got my chair elevated.
Yeah.
I'm
We'll
ready,
let you get out of here then and go convalesce. Once again, thank you for being here. Have a good night, good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you are. We wish you a good
Thanks,
one.
everybody. Good
See you
night.
later. Well, he's going to play us out.